Hello, Laker fans. Welcome to the Late Late Show. I'm your host, Matt from Lakers UK. We've got a very special episode for you with a very special guest. He's an official beat writer for the Lakers, the host of the official Lakers podcast, and sideline reporter, host, and does analysis for Spectrum SportsNet. He's Mr. Lakers reporter. It's Mike Trudell. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thank you for getting in touch with me. I don't know if you know this about me or really people in general, but I happen to love English people and really extending to great people in general. I find them to be more funny than the average American, slightly more educated, just more interesting. And I'm actually English myself. On my dad's side, and actually a little bit on my mom's side, we kind of like split between French and English and Irish. But so I do tie into that English blood. But yes, so I when I saw the DM from you, I was like, look, I always have time to speak to England. There's no question about that.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Like practically the entirety of my Lakers fandom has been watching your sideline reporting and player interviews. So it's so cool for me to be here chatting to you. I mean, I'm from the UK. I currently live in France as well. So that's ticking some of them boxes that you just mentioned there with your family.
Yeah, I mean, look, the English channel still connects us.
Definitely. Well, first of all, I hope that you and your family are safe. How are you holding up over there with everything that's going on in the world at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's difficult, I think, for everybody in the world, and I'm still in that position of just trying to learn and understand and do my part as best I can, and so my part has been to just stay in my house. Really, that's been the thing that has been the most consistent thing since the season ended, and I think the last game that I covered was, of course, the Nets Lakers game on was it the 11th? I want to say. Of March, and then I did play by play. Let's see, oh, it was the 10th actually. Yeah, it was the 10th, and then on the 11th, I did play by play for the G League game for the South Bay Lakers, right as they were canceling the season. So that was kind of difficult to go through. And since then, I've basically been home. And so I've just been trying to look at it. I've got 5-year-old twins. So I've been trying to look at it as my extended paternal leave, which I never really got to take because the boys were born in the middle of the preseason back in 2014. And I had to get back to the team after a couple of weeks. I just missed, I think, like 2 preseason games. Was the only games that I had missed since 2008 when I started. So I'm looking at this like that and just trying to spend as much time as I can with the family.
Okay, that's great to hear, and it's great to hear that you and your family are safe as well as the whole world is going through this. It's quite crazy. I mean, how flipping it to the Lakers? How do the players? How are they doing? Do you have contact with them? I've seen Danny Green talking on in the media about a team WhatsApp group, but the players were still going into the practice facility on an individual basis, weren't they initially? But then when the Nets news broke that you were just speaking about, that led to a full lockdown, did it?
Well, yeah, essentially, the entire league closed their practice facilities at that point, right? Once it became an issue where it was affecting more than one team and kind of more than one individual, and so we didn't share. Nobody's really shared the names if there were players that tested positive, but just regardless, I think they wanted to take that ultimate precaution and go for the couple of weeks of quarantine. And I have been able to speak to a couple of the players on the phone. In fact, the interviews that I wrote up are on Lakers.com, and I think I tweeted them out from my account if you guys want to check those out. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I talked to Danny and Alex Caruso. They're both doing well. They are both just trying to do their best to maintain some level of fitness while in their houses, and they're trying to eat right and just going through all of that. On being on Twitch and Netflix and watching shows and watching movies and training. That's really what they've been trying to do, and just stay to the point where if things turn to the positive and if things are able to turn out well, these guys want to be ready to go and to get back into it. But there's just so much uncertainty around this that all we're all doing right now is just staying home, and that includes the players.
Definitely, yes. And if it's possible, whilst I've got you, a question that I have for you personally is if we quickly rewind back a few years in terms of your career and in terms of professional sports, you actually started out in the NFL, didn't you, with the Baltimore Ravens in 2005 and then the Minnesota Vikings before going over to the NBA with the Timberwolves and then over to the Lakers in 2008. Is that a short, accurate roundup of your journey to LA?
Yeah, your background research is accurate. Well done. I I did start it. I had a bunch of different internships that I was doing either while in college, and I don't know if the programs are a bit different in Europe, and it depends on what country you're in. But I went to a typical 4-year university, Northwestern University here, and it's got one of the better journalism schools in the country, which was kind of why I went there. So I always had the intent of getting into covering sports and broadcasting. And so my first internship out of college, as you mentioned, was with the Baltimore Ravens, and that actually led me to Europe. So I did NFL Europe. I don't know if you guys remember
Yeah.
NFL Europe, because it's been defunct now for a little while. But I worked for the Cologne Centurions for one season, and that was great. It was amazing. I got to live at the Durant Sofitel for 4 months in Cologne, which was beautiful. And at the time, I had no money, no anything, and some of the players that had played in the NFL kind of took care of me the whole time. It was almost like I was on scholarship. So that was great, and we took some trips, and including that was one of the times that I was able to go to London. So yeah, it was that was kind of those were some of my formative years in sports, and then I finally started working in the NBA in 2005. Or let's see, it was the 06-07 season with the Timberwolves.
Okay, and then when you went over to LA, you went straight over to the bright lights of LA, and then the Lakers hit a championship run, didn't they, shortly after the championship winning years of 2009, 2010. How was that? It must have been surreal being around the likes of Kobe, Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom.
Yeah, it was a fantastic time for sure. I went from the Timberwolves, who had been struggling in those 2 years, and I had Kevin Garnett's last season in Minnesota, and then they traded him, and like that last season they did not win a lot of games. And when I saw that the Lakers thing developed, and I got that job, and I flew out, and I, of course, just being an NBA obsessed person, had watched everything that had happened the previous season and so on and so forth. So I thought the Lakers were going to win the title that year. So it's all about expectations. But I came into that season thinking, yeah, I mean, this is the best team in the league. They lost to Boston in the finals, but they had no Andrew Bynum, no Trevor Ariza, and the finals itself was a bit closer than it appeared when they got blown out in the final game. So I was
Mhm.
expecting them to bounce back and win that year, and so that, like, in terms of them winning, it wasn't that it was a surprise, but I was going in thinking that way, and so it was super exciting to follow that team, and super exciting to get to learn the NBA from that perspective. And going from what I had experienced in Minnesota to Phil Jackson every day, speaking to him, to me, the greatest coach ever, the smartest coach ever, and then Kobe, just how much I learned about basketball from Kobe was tremendous. So I'm very fortunate to be in that spot where I was able to go in right at that time with the Lakers.
Okay, and obviously, I would like to speak about Kobe Bryant. I mean, with the recent passing of Kobe, the outpour of grief around the world was incredible to see. He certainly left his mark and inspired millions globally, including myself. Me and my girlfriend, we went over to LA in February, which was around 10 days to 2 weeks after Kobe's passing, and it was surreal to see all the murals and all the tributes covering the city and actually being there. But you were close to Kobe. You spoke to him and were around him on countless occasions. You probably have many memories with him. What made Kobe so special? And have you got a personal favorite moment with him or being in his presence?
Yeah, so I had 8 years of covering Kobe, and then when he would come back to the arena, which wasn't often, but when he would come back, I would usually get a chance to just go and say a quick hello. And I did interview him on the phone a couple of times. I did this big piece on Dr. Bus, and so we talked about that, and so it was always good to connect with him. And I mean, the things that stand out just to me in general about him and about how he was who he was. I think if you look at anybody in the world, and I don't care, name your name your country, name, or just regardless of where you're from, the people that are truly great at
Mhm.
something have a mix of talent and work ethic. And you can, like, my favorite soccer player in England over the years, at least in the more recent years, was Wayne Rooney. And I think
Mhm.
he kind of can symbolize some of that, right? Where you have this incredible talent, and he burst into the Premier League, at age 16. But then, he also it just has this sort of work rate on the pitch that enables him to kind of get to that next level. And like before that, my favorite player was Ryan Giggs. As you can see, I'm clearly a Manchester United fan, so I'm probably half now. I don't know, 80% of your listeners are now gonna dislike me for that. But going back to Kobe, so he clearly was blessed with this amazing talent. His father was an NBA player, right? Jellybean Bryant, and he's
Mhm.
6'6". He's super athletic, all that. But what made him get to the place where he did as a top 10 player all time was a crazy, just phenomenal work rate and work ethic. And that's now, I think, been wrapped a little bit into this Mamba mentality that we've learned more about in the later years, and even that he had coaching his daughter, and how that was sort of translated onto Gigi. So that to me was what always stood out, is that it wasn't just the athleticism, it wasn't just the brain, it was this combination of both that made him that truly elite, truly special player. And I think that you can use that. And to me, sports are a great metaphor for life in general. You can pull that out and try. It's not easy for any of us, but you can try to apply that to your own situation, to whatever you can. And so I always found Kobe to be such an inspirational figure to me. And then I don't do. I can give you one story if you want on Kobe. But I don't want to keep talking. That was a little bit of a monologue there.
Yeah, if you've got a quick story to tell, that'd be fantastic to hear. Yeah.
All right, sure. So I'll give you one. I've told this before, and so certainly on whether on the radio here or on the official Lakers podcast. But so I'll try to do a brief version of it. But it's a little bit telling as to who Kobe was and who he is. And so my own personal favorite memory was I happened to play ping pong against him a couple of times, and so the reason this happened was the team was in Detroit over Thanksgiving,
Okay.
and we were all away from our families, and Thanksgiving in the States is one of the favorite holidays for many. And the typical thing is you just get together with your family and potentially a couple of close friends, but typically a family, and have this huge feast. And it goes back to the Pilgrims, all that, and we don't need to get into U.S. and British history and all that. But yes, so we're in Detroit, and Kobe decides to get the ballroom rented out for everybody once he learned that the team didn't have anything planned, and in the spur of a moment was able to get it fully catered, and this just massive Thanksgiving spread. And there happened to be a ping pong table in the area. Some of the players were playing. At some point, I went over and was playing with Jordan Farmar, who folks would remember from that back-to-back championship run as the backup
Mhm.
point guard. So he and I are playing. I'm playing against a guy named Sean Williams, as this was a couple years after that run. And Kobe was on the sideline and essentially talking trash to Sean Williams because he was losing to me, the sideline reporter. Essentially like, what, like, dude, what are you doing? And I then was being facetious, but it was just sort of playing Kobe's game a little bit. And I said, "What if you want some? I'm happy to give you some too. If you want to get beat, you can." And I've assumed that he either wouldn't want to play, or that he was some legendary ping pong player too, just because he's Kobe. And he was like, "All right." So he got up and we started playing, and I quickly learned just from it doesn't take long, right? In any sport, I kind of knew that I was a little better at ping pong. I grew up playing a lot and whatever. So I'm no world class player or anything, but I can hold my own. And so I learned that I was better. But the reason that this was so interesting to me is that if you just kind of play a pickup game of anything with anybody, most of the time it's friendly. People are you might talk a little trash, but there's no it's not like Game 7 or anything for most people. But for Kobe,
Okay.
he's studying the way that I'm playing, and by the end of the first game, he's already made me switch what I was doing, which was essentially preying on his backhand and trying to set up my forehand slam, and he's already adjusting within the course of one game, and it just was miraculous to me that you can sort of see why he is who he is, right? Even in that context of playing ping pong. And then so I beat him pretty handily, and he says, "All right, let's run it back, let's go again." And he's not mad that he lost to the sideline reporter. He doesn't care, right? He knows who he is. He's just not going to do it again if it's up to him. So, like, he's going to get. It's a strange thing. Usually, if you beat somebody like that and somebody that's got high stature, you could see them getting frustrated. He wasn't getting frustrated. He was just like, all right, so I now need to do this. And then the score in the second game was much closer than it was in the first game. And I was still better. I still beat him, but it took more. And what I had heard was that after that Thanksgiving dinner, he told his security guy, like, "Look, we need to get a ping pong table ordered." And so essentially, so that doesn't happen again. So that next time that he gets in a room somewhere and people are playing ping pong, he's not getting up there and losing. So it was just my own little insight into what he's like as a competitor and just as a person, and as an individual, and that was fascinating to me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for sharing that story. It is fascinating. I think it's telling for his work ethic and his willingness to just be the best at everything that came across. And it really was telling after his basketball career when he went and did the short film and won awards and was successful in business and wrote books and things like that. So thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to transition from then to now. So obviously you covered the championship winning years of '09 and 10 and straight away in your career. And it seemed like those days had returned before the NBA suspension and hopes were high of another championship this season. You've covered the Kobe Pau Gasol teams and now a LeBron Anthony Davis team. The chemistry between LeBron and AD has been very apparent this season, and it seems that it's been spreading throughout the roster. My question to you is what makes this season's Lakers team so special, and are there any similarities to that of the last championship window of the Lakers?
Yeah, so similarities. I think there are similarities between any championship caliber team in almost any sport, and this is one of the things about sports is that we can all understand the different languages. And like when I watch the English Premier League, I can make analogies to the NBA, and which team plays like another team. And so there's nobody this season that quite had Liverpool's English Premier League season, right, where they had sort of the right form. They had the talent, they had the belief, they had the coach, they had the system, they had the fans. Like everything sort of was seemingly pushing towards that one clear goal, and you had a clear best team. That's how the Warriors were
Yeah,
the previous 7 years, right? So
yeah,
like that was what it was like. That's what it back when everything was right in the world. That's what it was like in Manchester United. We got all the best English players, and then we grabbed an elite talent from somewhere else in the world, a Ronaldo, a Nani, going back into a Roy Keane, even though that's still part of in the geographical area, Ryan Giggs, or you'd pull Dwight York, out of the Caribbean.
yeah,
Like there was Eric Cantona. Like there were that was how things were. And the Lakers have had certainly years like that. This year, there were a couple of teams I think that had the requisite talent. And to me, in the preseason, it was the Bucks, the Clippers, and the Lakers. And I thought that the Lakers had the best chance of winning a 7-game series because I still think that LeBron James in a playoff series, even whether it's 1 game or 7 games, I still think that he has the biggest impact on the game of anybody. And so I,
yeah.
I would have picked him. And then I think Anthony Davis is the second best player on any of those teams, just given all that he can do on both ends. And Paul George, playing where he was at a All NBA first team level last season, but he had the offseason shoulder surgeries, and so I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to back to that. So anyway,
Mhm.
that's a long-winded way of saying like I definitely saw the Lakers before the season started as having what it took to win a championship. And what I wasn't sure of, and what I wasn't, I think you always have to wait and see how it plays out in a team is how are these guys going to interact with each other? What's the chemistry going to be like? How are they going to fit with one another? And that was just fantastic, really compared to even those winning teams for the Lakers in 08 and 09 and 09-10. Like those teams had great chemistry, but it was almost in a different way. It was in a like we are winning this period. It's serious. It's game time. There is no messing around. And Kobe set that tone. He got Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom and Andrew Bynum to follow that dictum.
Yeah.
Like it was a team with a purpose. This Lakers team, they certainly have the same purpose, but it's a much more college like feel almost, even though it's mostly vets. It's just like these guys have just all been so much on the same page. And I think that the dynamic with Davis is that clear number two and coming in and wanting to follow LeBron in that sense, but also being a leader himself, that has set the tone with vets now. Everybody else on the roster knows they're there specifically to supplement and to complement those players. So that to me has been the real big thing that's made the Lakers the number one seed, with a 5.5 game lead at the time the season was suspended, because they were all able to unite like that around the talent that they had that was going to make them good regardless.
Yeah, and you mentioned LeBron there, and it's hard not to. He was playing at such an incredible level before the suspension in his 17th season too. It's true. It was truly incredible to witness. What's it like being behind the scenes with a person like LeBron? What's he like off the camera?
I really like LeBron. I think everybody around him does. He's always positive. He always stays in the moment. He's all about whatever is going on that day, whoever the next opponent is, and he's cool with all his teammates. Like they're really you kind of what you see is what you get from LeBron. With I don't know if you guys happen to see he was on Instagram Live the other day for a
Yeah.
while, and that's what he's like. Like that's what he's like. He's joking around with his teammates. He's joking around with you, with the media. He's giving good answers to whatever questions that you ask. He's excellent in the walk-off interviews. So like he's a real easy player to cover. He's a real easy guy to be around. And for somebody that's been, you got to think about this. So since he was probably 5 or 6 years old, he's been the best. He's like at basketball, at football while he was playing, he's been the best. And I think that so he's probably had people telling him that as well, and it's been true. And he still is all this time later. At age 35, he's still the best. So to be the best in the world at something for essentially 30 years, and look, when he went into the NBA, he wasn't the best player in the world, but he was pretty close. Even when he was young, he was up there getting on all NBA first teams, like in his very early in his career. So he's always had that confidence, and there's always been a certain way that he's carried himself, and that hasn't changed. He's still LeBron James.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know that you're a bit, we haven't got too much time, so I'd like to get towards the latter end of the podcast. And in the last few episodes, I've been interviewing guests, and we've kind of go down the route with some quick fire questions. Some are Lakers related, some are just general questions. Usually this or that, or what is your favorite, whatever. Is that good with you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, please.
Okay, so let's start. What's your favorite fast food?
Favorite fast food. Well, I have a massive sweet tooth. So, I can encapsulate a lot of stuff in this, but for fast food, I will probably go with In-N-Out Burger. Now, if you've been to Los Angeles, you've had it. They don't have it in many other places, many other states. You can get it in Las Vegas, and certain other parts of California. But yeah, In-N-Out Burger would probably be my first choice.
Okay. What's your favorite vacation destination?
Man, the coolest city that I've ever been to would probably be Barcelona. I've been there twice and had an incredible experience. And I will tell you though that England is up there for me. I confessed at the beginning of this podcast of being an Anglophile, and but here's the thing: I haven't been to many cities in England aside from London. So I'd love to go to Manchester. Maybe you could give me like a top 5 of places to visit in England if I were to go back.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's something that I could provide for you. I'm personally from the north of England, a place called Leeds, which isn't too far from Manchester, actually.
Yeah, no, I've read about, and I can't remember that's what the book's called. Is it like Leeds United or something, or is that?
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Football team, yeah.
I've read about the football club and just how I know they used to be quite good, and then things changed as they have with your club. I learned before we started recording.
Yeah, but for people who are listening that won't know, because I've never said it, I'm a Bolton Wanderers fan. So, yeah, you're probably laughing now as you've heard that, but it's not been very good in recent years.
Yeah, sorry about that, man. It's got to be tough. Look, all you got to do is do what Manchester City did, and get an oil monarch from a different country to come in and buy your way back to success. That's unlike the purely driven Manchester United, who just did power and history and glory.
Right, well, we'll continue with the questions. Who's the funniest Laker on the current roster?
Hmm. For years, the default answer was Nick Young, but since he is no longer on the squad, I mean, Jared
Mhm.
Dudley is quite funny. Kuz is very funny. I think some guys on the team would tell you that LeBron is up there, or Dwight. They're certainly the most active and the loudest. But yeah, I would probably have to narrow down and choose either Dudley or Kuzma.
Okay, and we've got two more for you, and then I'll just quickly ask you something else to round out the podcast. Twitter or Instagram?
So it totally depends, right? So for work, Twitter is more vital, and that's where I can actually cover a game just on Twitter. And so I do think that it continues to provide value in that sense. Like during
Mhm.
the coronavirus, for example, like with this, all that's going on, and all of the just trying to get the news and the information, I still think Twitter is better for that. But if I'm just like at my house and there isn't something I need to know at the time, then I'd certainly prefer Instagram, right? Because they have their different functionalities. Now I'm cheating a little bit. So if I had to just pick one, I guess my answer would be Instagram. But I have to
Okay.
recognize the imports of Twitter in work context, especially in information gathering context.
Definitely. Do you prefer a movie marathon or a TV show binge?
Well, I would probably go TV in this instance. I think that TV has just grown so much and so exponentially. And I put up, in fact, speaking of Instagram, I put up an Instagram list sort of my favorite shows uh, of the last several years. And it's not. This is not something that I think is necessarily universal, but certainly for folks that are in America, my list was The Wire, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, The West Wing, Friday Night Lights, and then as a runner-up, Mad Men. Now, I would put if we are going to put some comedies
Mhm.
in there, I would put Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I would put The Office, and especially the British version of The Office was one of my favorite shows ever with Ricky Gervais. I don't know how that show's looked at now in England, but I absolutely love that show. I thought it was just completely brilliant. I had never seen anything like it, and I think a lot of shows have stolen from it since. So that has to be up there for me too.
Yeah, well, I mean, that leads into the final question, actually. So, obviously, everyone's watching films and TV shows whilst in quarantine. And you've mentioned a load of TV shows there. It's funny because I actually love the US Office. The UK one's okay, but with Ricky Gervais, I think you either love him or you don't quite get him. And sometimes I'm in the mood, sometimes I'm not. So, I really like the US Office. But what would you put as a top?
Hold on, but if you like the U.S. Office, then you have to give all of the credit to Ricky Gervais, who
Yeah.
essentially came up with the entire thing. But yes, the U.S. Office was amazing. I didn't like the first season as much because it was like they were almost trying to do an exact repeat of the British Office. Once they started to sort
Mhm.
of let the actors be themselves, right? Then it was great at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, to round out, what are your top five movies slash TV shows for surviving the quarantine? It doesn't have to be in order. Would it be what you've just said, or are you watching things at the moment?
Yeah, so I like at the moment, I mean, in America, everybody is obsessed with this Tiger King show on Netflix. I watched it. It was definitely interesting as to just how crazy this group of people were that essentially like they all owned and then well, I won't spoil it, but that was interesting. I didn't think it was quite as great in terms of like a television drama. It was just insane reality. So, but the
Okay.
best show on right now is Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's on HBO. I like
Mhm.
a couple of other like if you like HBO shows. So I have Chernobyl. That's been a couple months though, and Westworld just started up, so I'm really enjoying that. Euphoria,
Mhm.
also on HBO, was great. And then I don't know if you're a hip hop fan. Wu Tang Clan of Mikes and Men on Showtime was great.
Yeah,
And
I've
I'm
heard of
also
it.
okay, yeah, so that's great. I'm watching Homeland, which is live, and then Better
Mhm.
Call Saul. Let's see. I loved Narcos Mexico, and
Okay.
there's also a show. There's a Netflix series on Formula One, which is really cool. And I wasn't really a big Formula One fan before it, but that I think that kind of shows the power of some of the inside access that you get. And they weren't getting Lewis Hamilton before. Where he's British, right? Where's Hamilton from
Yeah.
specifically?
Yeah, I'm not just down south. I think like
Okay.
around London area, but
Around
yeah,
London.
I've seen that one, the F1
Oh
TV show.
yeah.
It's really good behind the scenes. It's like the equivalent of what like because I love watching Backstage Lakers, where it's like documentary style behind the scenes, and it pretty much ticks that box for Formula One. It's excellent. It's really good.
Right. So yeah. So that's it. And by the way, if you have any other Laker questions, I got about 5 more minutes. If there's some other stuff that you wanted to get to that because I know you had to skip over a couple things.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, we can rewind a little bit. I was just being a bit time conscious, but one thing I'll ask you this, and then we'll round up.
Okay. Cool.
You with the Lakers? You're with them practically all the time, aren't you? and that includes traveling on the road with the team, I believe, which must be rewarding, but it also must be really tiring. I bet back-to-backs are brutal. What is that like? Could you take us through kind of like your routine on the road? What is that like for you?
Yeah, so I actually, it's funny because I get this question a lot just about what it's like to travel, and people do assume that it's difficult. And I actually, I don't, not to spoil it, but I would almost say it's the opposite. So being on the road, especially with private travel, is actually quite easy, for me at least. Now part of that is because I'm a night owl, and a lot of the time, let's say you're in New Orleans, and the game ends at 10 p.m. You're in the air by midnight, and you're landing in, let's say, back in Los Angeles at 2 in the morning. Like, that's fine for
Hmm.
me. I'm typically on that kind of a schedule anyway. I think for people that are early risers, it could be a little bit difficult, but everything is taken care of for you on the road because they want to make sure that it's as easy as it can be for the players. So you're driving to a separate terminal from the typical airport. You're walking straight onto a plane. The plane is taking off pretty shortly. The plane lands after you've been well fed on the plane, and you're walking down to a bus that takes you to a hotel. They have your room keys out on the table, with some waters and Gatorades and snacks and stuff. So then you get up to your room, and for me, again, since I have small children at home, I'm actually able to get a lot of work done while I'm on the road, and so I'm a little bit more productive there. I'm working out a little bit more. So the only tough part for me of being on the road is that I miss my family. So it's not the
Yeah.
actual being gone that is taxing. I think it is for the people that are flying commercially, all over the country, and how my old radio partner Michael Thompson, who played for the Showtime Lakers in the '80s, is always talking about that, how hard it used to be and how soft these things are today for the players. But so I understand that, right? Because it is easy for me. I just end up I miss my wife, I miss my kids, but I actually really do enjoy that part of being on the road and really inundating myself with the team. And I think it also provides the best way to really understand the team, see what guys are like in that context, and to not miss anything by being able to be at everything.
Yeah, no, definitely, and that's fascinating to have that insight. And thank you so much for taking the time to come back to me and jump on the pod after I did that group tweet. I really appreciate it. It's been fantastic having you. I hope you enjoyed it as well. We've tried to make it a little bit fun with not just basketball questions, but a bit of general things, films, TV shows, and I'm sure our listeners have enjoyed it as well.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and like I said, had you told me that you were a Liverpool or a Chelsea or an Arsenal fan, even Tottenham, then or Tottenham City, then things might have gone differently. But the fact that your squad has sadly been relegated, meant that you were not a threat whatsoever, to Manchester United, and therefore, we're cool, you and I.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we go, do you want to let people know where they can find you on social media? Have you got any work you want to shout out or anything like that?
No, I mean, you mentioned the stuff at the top. It's fine. Like, if people want to find me, they can find me. I just came out to talk a little hoops, and to spread the Manchester United gospel, and to make people roll their eyes for the 100th time that I've mentioned that now in the spot.
Well, that's perfect. Well, thanks again for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and stay safe.
All right, go United.
And to the listeners, you can find The Late Late Show on all major podcast platforms. Please follow and leave a review where possible. Be sure to follow Lakers UK over on Twitter and Instagram under LA Lakers UK, and subscribe to our YouTube channel also. We'll catch you next time.